Hey guys, it's Angelika from Max Tech, and happy end of 2020! This disappointing year is finally coming to a close, and to honor that, I want to talk about the most disappointing Apple fails of the year. Some of these you guys can instantly name, some you may not know, and others you might not even agree with. And yes, this video does include M1 Max. The first fail is the Smart Case. Apple's AirPods Max was their final product of 2020, and in our honest opinion, they killed it on the headphones, but the case was their worst product of the year. First off, it looks like a bra, which has spawned many memes, but more than that, usability sucks since it's required to put the headphones into low power mode quickly, and it has slits along the edges and an exposed headband, which makes scuffs and scratches a concern. The next disappointment is Apple still sticking to Lightning ports. We know that they will soon be switching over to portless iPhones and USB-C everywhere else, so why wouldn't they just switch over now? Especially on the AirPods Max. If you bought these headphones, you're going to be keeping them for a long time. So why would Apple stick to Lightning when in a year or two, everything is going to be USB-C or portless? And you're going to be stuck needing to keep a lightning cable just to charge your headphones. The next failure is a big one. Earlier this year, Apple released new Intel MacBook Airs with much faster graphics and powerful quad-core CPUs. They had both a heatsink and a fan, but they did not connect the fan to the heatsink. This was absolutely ridiculous and made for very hot and loud running machines that throttle so much the quad cores weren't really worth it. Now, we do have a theory. We think Apple really wanted to make the MacBook Air fanless and counted on Intel's 10th gen CPUs running cool, but they didn't, so instead of redesigning everything, they threw in a fan to draw more air in. But of course, that wasn't enough, and it led to massive throttling issues and super annoying fans, even when browsing the web and doing simple Zoom calls. Now, the next disappointment involves M1 Max. First, the M1 MacBook only natively supports one external display, which hasn't been a limitation with Macs for like almost 10 years now. And this alone caused people to go for an Intel MacBook instead, or wait for a future Apple Silicon model. Second, the new M1 Mac Mini, for some reason, only has 2 Thunderbolt ports, where previously, the Intel Mini came with 4 ports. And guess what? The M1 Mini actually supports 4 ports. Let me explain. OWC dug deep into figuring out the reason behind the lack of the extra ports, and they discovered that Apple is actually using 2 separate Thunderbolt controllers, just like the old Mini which has 4 ports, and M1 actually supports Thunderbolt 4, but Apple couldn't call them that because they only support one display. Apple could have technically given the M1 4 Thunderbolt ports, but they decided to limit it, and that's a huge fail because we can no longer get 10 gigabit Ethernet as well, meaning that Max can't connect to our server, and those 2 ports are full from his display and our QNAP. Moving on to the next one, let's talk about the iPhone 12 Pro Max. When Apple first announced the best cameras only coming on the Pro Max, quite a few people, including Max, bought it just for that. But it turned out to be a bit of a disappointment. The main camera is only slightly better, but the 2.5 times lens looks worse than the 2 times on the Pro more often than not. That's because the aperture went from f2.0 to f2.2 in order to achieve the 2.5 times zoom, and that means that it takes in less light. Because of that, photos in lower light look worse, with more noise and more motion blur as well. Portrait mode photos suffer even more since they require more light. So, in many cases, Max and Vadim have been using the main camera way more than before. It seems like Apple caved into pressure from other competing smartphone companies having more zoom, even though it didn't really help them quality-wise. Another fail this year is Apple no longer including charging bricks. This was a big deal when everyone first found out, because the new iPhone 12s include a Lightning to USB-C cable, so if you don't already have a USB-C power adapter, you need to buy one separately from Apple for $19. Now, this isn't really a huge fail by itself, since other companies have been either raising their 5G phone prices, which Apple didn't, and with that, they are now following suit and no longer including charging bricks with their upcoming phones, even after making fun of them. Where it gets worse is MagSafe charging requires this new brick as well for full speeds, but not including it. At $39, it's a bummer, but not a huge deal. But when spending $130 for the MagSafe Duo, not getting the $19 brick that's required is a huge fail. Speaking of charging, Apple's new MagSafe charger itself is the next disappointment on the list. At first, we were really excited for it because Apple advertised it as having 15-watt wireless charging, which was long awaited. But that was a massive exaggeration. In reality, MagSafe only charges at 15 watts for the first 10% of battery. After that, it slows way down to less than half the speed at about 6 watts. And even worse, if you have an older iPhone or an Android, it maxes out at 3 watts. Less than half the speed of that typical wireless cheat chargers that can be bought for $15, which is really disappointing. On the topic of MagSafe, the new MagSafe wallets are also a fail. When we first heard about it, we were pretty excited. It seemed like a great product for people that only need to carry around a few cards, and you could even use it in place of a phone case if you wanted to. But it was a big letdown for most because the magnets in the wallet are very weak, so it constantly slips off when you're putting it into your pocket, for instance. And that's honestly pretty scary, always having to risk it falling off somewhere and losing your cards. The 12 mini is the only phone we could recommend it for because it fits perfectly and doesn't slip off. But Apple could have fixed this by using stronger magnets. The next fail of the year is the iconic $1,000 stand for the Mac Pro. Now the fail actually isn't the pricing of the stand itself, since it's machined out of a solid block of aluminum and you can easily adjust the display by just using one finger. But it was the way that Apple announced it. Just watch for yourself.
Hey guys, it's Max here. It looks like that was such a fail for Apple that Angelika has tried to upload this video twice and modified that clip, and Apple keeps blocking it from YouTube and not even allowing us to post our video. So basically what happened here is that Apple showed off the XDR, they showed off the stand, and then when they gave the price, the whole crowd kind of had this collective grunt of disappointment for a $1,000 stand. And that does once again prove our point, probably even more so, that this stand from Apple was a massive fail, or at least the way they handled it.
Everyone was shocked by the pricing, which is understandable, but that wouldn't have happened if Apple just said the display is $6,000 and if you don't want the stand, then you get $1,000 off. The last failure of the year is the Mac Pro, and not because it's a bad product, but just because of how fast it's aged, and not in the way most expected, like older PCI slots or CPU sockets, but because of Apple's own M1 processors, making the beast seem outdated. Now sure, a Mac Mini won't replace the crazy high-end configs or expandability of the Mac Pro, but we've already seen many people say that they're going to wait for an M1 Mac Pro instead, and Max himself is having trouble selling his Mac Pro at a good discount, with 2 buyers backing out because of how powerful Apple M1 Macs are. Once Apple releases the new Apple Silicon Mac Pro, the prices of these will drop dramatically. If you want to know more about what it'll offer, check out Vadim detailed video right over there. Click the button above to subscribe. Thank you guys for watching, and thank you for helping us reach 500,000 subscribers this year. Happy New Year, and we'll see you in the next one. Happy New Year. Alright, I'm done. Freaking done. Screw this.